Hey everybody, I'm here today. This is Mo Troop. I'm here with Mr. Cliff Crosby. He was born and raised in Erie, Pennsylvania. Graduated from East High School. The Warriors had a great athletic career there in several sports. Great academic career. When he left there, he went on to be a football player, Division I at Maryland University. Was a defensive back there. From there, he went on to be in the NFL with the St. Louis Rams, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Kansas City Chiefs. And then he also had the great opportunity to play in the Super Bowl in 2000 with the St. Louis Rams. What's up, Cliff? How you doing, man?
Man, I'm just chilling, Mo. It's a beautiful Friday. Just chilling, man. Just trying to catch up with you so we can knock this interview out, man, for the people, for the city, for the students that you will be showing this to, man. You're in my old stomping ground, man. You're in the new East. I was in the old East, but it's still a beautiful place, man.
That's it, man. The kids love you. I mean, we at Erie High School. I know when they did something last year about who they want to be the commencement speaker. Your name came out first. So although your football career is over, you still a big name here, man, and that's got to feel great for you.
Yeah, it does. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's good to get your flowers while you're still here. I always think about times in which, if I was to leave and no longer here, what would the response be in Erie? What would that look like in Erie? So, it's good to be recognized and to be appreciated while you're still here.
Yeah, that's great, man. So let's get right to it, Cliff. Where did you grow up? I know you grew up obviously in Erie. What was the neighborhood like? What part of Erie did you grow up in?
I grew up in the Harbor Homes, and when Mr. John Turan was here, he hated when we called it the Holly. He didn't like the Holly. He liked it to be called Harbor Homes, and he was a good friend of mine, man. He helped me out a lot growing up, and when I went off to college, him and Bobby Harrison, two great guys that really were like mentors to me, and they wanted to see me succeed. So I grew up in that community in the Harbor Homes, East 18th Street, playing at the Scene Center on June Street, going to the JFK every summer, playing basketball for the JFK Rec Center, playing against the Booker T. Washington, the MLK Center. So those were the days, man, where you were just happy to be playing sports, man. Sports was the thing to do. So that's what I did. And I just remember staying in my lane, man. That was just one thing I think when I look back on my childhood, I never really got out of my lane. I knew what my lane was and I stayed in it.
Right. That's great, man. Great memories. Now I'm looking at you on the Zoom here, man. You look like, a lot of guys, even including myself, we were in good shape back then, but we kind of out of shape a little bit now. You look like you're still in great shape, like you can still play, man. Tell me about that. You staying healthy or what's up?
Yeah, man. One of my mantras on social media has always been just self-care, right? Like I just believe in, when I grew up, Mo, and being in the Holly, being in the projects, being in on 24th Street where my mom currently lives now, I didn't see a lot of people taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Black people working out. I didn't see Black people eating healthy. So for me, as I grew up and became independent and became adult, man, I really focused on self-care. And I said, I want to look young for as long as I can. Of course, Father Time is going to have something to say about that. But at the end of the day, man, my regimen is try to work out 3 to 4 times a week in the gym and then try to go for a long walk or run at least 5 days a week. Today, I went for a 5-mile run before I got my day started. And that usually propels me to have a good day, man. It's good for your mind. Getting outside, getting some sun. So for me, man, self-care is a big deal for me.
That's definitely great, man, especially as we get older, man. And a lot of things come up that we didn't experience when we were younger to keep your health, man. Live a healthy life. So
health is wealth.
That's it, man. Cliff, is there anything you learned? I mean, tell me about your parents, tell me about your siblings, your family growing up. Tell me about some of that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a single family home, man, like many of my friends did. And the difference about my family was that I'm the oldest of 5 siblings. So there's 5 of us. I'm the oldest. I got two brothers that are twins. They're 10 years age difference than me. So I'm 47 today. They're 37. Then I got two sisters that are right up under me. And the unique thing about being in that family, Mo, is the fact that I was the only sibling that did not know his father. I had no relationship with my father. I seen no pictures of my father, never met the man, had no information about that half of my family. So when I look back on some of those times, man, I was a lot of my friends didn't experience that. A lot of them knew who their father was. Right. They might not have had great relationships with them, but they at least knew who they were. They knew their other side of their other family. And for me, I always felt a little incomplete. I always felt like I didn't know something else about me. And I was always curious about trying to figure that out as I got older.
Right. Did you ever connect with your father or at all, or have you ever done that? Or
no, you know what's interesting, Mo? I would say over the pandemic, I was always trying to find my father and trying to figure out who that was, and do some research on my own, use Google, all that type of stuff.
Right.
But recently, I joined Ancestry DNA. When I joined Ancestry DNA, man, I saw a lot of family members that I didn't recognize. They weren't on my Crosby Jones side.
Right.
And lo and behold, man, I met a brother. I have an older brother, and I haven't even talked about it because we haven't met in person.
Right.
But we've communicated on text messages. We've shared pictures with one another. But he's 50 years old, and the funny thing is, I always wanted a bigger brother.
Right.
I always said, man, I want a big brother, because when you're the oldest sibling in your family, you feel like there's no one protecting you. Like, who's protecting you?
Right.
You're looked at as the protector of your
other
siblings.
Right.
But I just felt I was always unprotected. Didn't have a dad, didn't have an older sibling. I just always felt unprotected, and I had to learn how to navigate. And I think that was the first instance that showed me how to survive. I still had to figure out how to survive in that environment.
Right. So I noticed that you're really big. I noticed you post a lot of stuff about your own son and being a father. Is that what that came from? Because I see you're real supportive of your son and athletics, business. Is that where that came from?
Absolutely, man. I want him to experience what I did. I want him to experience some of the things that I didn't, those father-son conversations, that advice that I give him, that motivation that I might just shoot him a text and just say, hey, be great today. You're a great kid. You're on the right track. Him seeing me in person and seeing my behavior, how I act and my demeanor, so he can start to understand why he acts the way he acts. Because sometimes you don't know where you get your characteristics from and
right.
your DNA from. Sometimes I'm sure you experience this too, when you see your father and you see some things that he does, and you're like, man, that's where I get that.
That's where I get that. So exactly.
It's just a small thing that's huge, man. It goes a long way.
Exactly. So, is there anything like from your mom that you learned that you still use today that sticks with you today?
My mom was very resilient. I think when I was in middle school, my mom was a victim of the crack epidemic. She was on crack cocaine for many years during my middle school years and pretty much all of my high school years. I think she probably finally got help and got off of drugs in my junior year, between my junior and senior year. That was tragic for my family. And so just watching my mom go through that, man, it was one of the toughest lessons that I could learn. Because it taught me how to stay away from drugs. Right. Because there's no better lesson than to see your family member or your mother or father struggling with drug addiction every day in your presence. There's no message that anyone had to tell me about the importance of saying no to drugs and going in the other direction when it came to drugs.
Right.
So just her resilience taught me that I'm stronger than what I thought. Her love, she's always had love for me, even when she was on drugs, even when she was high, she still showed love, and she still was a mom. And so today, now, every time I talk to my mom and I say, Mom, I'm going out somewhere, I'm going to hang out with the fellas, I'm going to do this, she always gives me 3 things to do. Make sure you pray, make sure you return back home and call me. And then the last thing she'll say is, be a gentleman.
Right.
Be a gentleman when you go out. And I say, all right, Mom, I'm always a gentleman, but I'll be a gentleman tonight.
Great. That's great stuff. So when did you start? I mean, you were a great athlete in the football field. Is football the only sport you played growing up? Did you play other sports? Tell me about how you got into sports.
Yeah, so funny enough, the first time that I played organized football was for the projects on East 18th Street. We were called the Dallas Cowboys. We had these white T-shirts. We used to cut them up at the end, and they used to look like little layers of shirts.
Right.
And it's funny, we used to come up the wood line. We used to play against you.
I remember them days. I remember.
Yeah, you might have been playing too. I think you were the quarterback for the team. We had Richard Saunders and Shelton Pulliam was our coaches. And they were huge Cowboys fans, and that's why we were called the Cowboys.
Yeah, I remember those days.
We had another guy on our team at that time who was our star player, was Dietrich Gels. Whenever I played on the Cowboys team, it was me and Dietrich on that team, but really it was Dietrich's team, right? He was the fastest guy in the neighborhood. Nobody could beat Dietrich in running. And, he was the bar. He was the bar that was like, man, if you can beat Dietrich in the race, you golden.
Right.
So he was the first original OG in sports, right? He was the guy I looked to, and I was like, man, Dietrich fast. Didn't get to see him a lot at Tech playing football because of my situation and my mom being on drugs and not being able to just get around and move and see things. But playing on those teams and growing up gave me the love for football, but it still wasn't enough to make me want to play more organized. I was a basketball player, and basketball was my sport growing up because it was easy to do, right? You could just take a basketball and just dribble anywhere.
Right, then take a lot, right.
And get a pickup game.
Right.
You couldn't just go get a pickup football game. You had to be in the mindset to play football. You had to physically want to get tackled, physically want to tackle somebody else. So football wasn't the sport that I gravitated to. Right. It was basketball. And so as I matriculated through middle school and high school, I began to see the benefits of football and the benefits of being on a team. It wasn't necessarily just about football. It was about what else was I going to do with my time when basketball season isn't in. Right. And I think that's the part that young people don't understand is that an idle mind is not good. Idle time is not good. You need to be busy because when you're not, you're going to find something to get busy, and most of the time it's not going to be good things.
Right. So who were, just to name a few, you named Dietrich. I know the neighborhood, the Holly and 18th Street, there was some great athletes came out of that neighborhood. You one of them. Javon Johnson, Dietrich Gels. I always say it's amazing because 3 professional players came out of that one area. So what are some other names for the Erie city that you remember from that neighborhood?
Man, so some of the names and some of the players that I remember watching was one, Tony Jones. Tony Jones had a great basketball handle. I just remember him being good at basketball. I was like, man, if I could dribble like him. But at those times, you didn't know you needed to practice dribbling. Right. You just thought if I play basketball, I'll eventually learn
get better at it. Right.
But no, you really needed to practice it. Steph Curry shows us that every day, right? Practice it. You got to practice your craft. And so Tony Jones, watching him play basketball, watching him play for the Steelers, and one of your coaches, Bill Scroth. I hope I said his name right.
I remember Tony because Tony was one of my heroes. I still tell him that today.
Yeah, he was a great athlete, man. I think and one of the tragic things that happened to him is that at the skating rink up on 38th Street, he got hit by the bus. He was waiting for the bus to get picked up. There was a scuffle. He fell. The bus rolled over him and broke his legs. That changed the trajectory of his life because he never really got back into sports
I never knew that.
The way he should have. But he had a promising career, man. It's a lot of, not just from that neighborhood, but you had guys like Roosevelt Benjamin, man, who I think, in my opinion, was one of the greatest all-around athletes and physical shape guy that I could remember, man. He had all the talent. And interesting enough, we'll come back and we'll talk about him because I got some thoughts on him and how he developed and the path that he took and just how things went for him and just he's not an anomaly because there's a Roosevelt Benjamin in every community. There's a Roosevelt Benjamin in every neighborhood, every ghetto, every city you go to that had the potential but just took a different path.
Right. A couple other names I'm going to throw out there. I'm going to give credit to my brother Grover Lyons And I'm gonna give credit to Ruzy Price. I hear his name all the time as one of the OGs that came off that street too, man.
Yeah, and there was another one because Grover played at East.
Yeah.
My cousin Shannon Jones played at East. They had a running back. What was his name? They had another running back, short guy. Because I used to go watch their games. I used to watch the East games, man. And I just used to be like, man, I want to play in this stadium one day. I want to play. And when I used to go to the Audi and play, I used to want to play in that stadium.
Right.
If you're from Erie, you want to play in Gannon Audi. You want to play at the stadium. There's just certain things that you want to check off your box.
Right. So you went on to play high school football at East. Now, like I'm sure coming out of middle school, you were one of the most highly touted athletes out here. You could have chose to win anywhere, Prep, Vincent, East, but you stayed at East. Did you always go to East, or why did you choose to play at East?
Right. Well, the story goes, man, I was at the basketball court at the Scene Center. Andy Cicini and his assistant coach came to the basketball court at the Scene Center in the project. And when they got out the car, honestly, I was like, man, who are these two white guys? Why are they coming up to the Scene Center basketball court? And then they yell out, Cliff, can we talk to you? I'm like, whoa. Why are two white guys want to talk to me? That don't look good in the booth. Like, are you snitching? Like, who are these dudes you talking to? Are these the police? So it wasn't a good look. So I'm like, I don't know who they are. So they came up, they talked to me, man. And honestly, it was Andy Cicini and the relationship I developed with him. He told me at the basketball court, he said, man, I can help you get into college. And it was the first time that somebody ever spoke to me about sports and college in the same sentence.
Right.
Because I didn't know you had to go to college. I didn't know that was an option. I just knew I wanted to play sports. And he said, I can help you get there. He said, you should think about coming to Vincent. And so I ended up joining Vincent. Me and David McClendon, who was a cousin of mine, we ended up going to Vincent. And we were supposed to play basketball for the Vincent. And something happened. I didn't quite live in that zone, and the school district found out about it. Somebody told, I don't know, maybe it was got people at East. I don't know. Well, when they found out about it, one thing about Andy Cicini is, like, I don't want you to go to East. He said, I'm gonna make some phone calls, and I'm going to get you in the Cathedral Prep. And at that time, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Whatever you got to do.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to get you in Cathedral Prep, because he was the assistant coach at Cathedral Prep before coming over to Vincent. So he made some calls, and he told me it's all set up. He wants me to go to Cathedral Prep. And he said that's going to be the best opportunity for me to have an opportunity to go to college. And so I was like, okay, whatever it is. Got to Prep. I was there for all the 4 days, man, and I just realized that wasn't for me. That life, that atmosphere was just not what I was used to at that time growing up. I wasn't used to being around people that didn't look like me for a considerable amount of time every day. The black kids that were at the school were people that I knew, some of them, Bobby Hamilton, Sean Somerville. I knew those guys, and those guys were cool. We played on schools, basketball together and all that.
Right.
But being at school, it was like, man, I don't like this. It's an all-boys school. It's an all predominantly white school. And I knew none of those kids. And I was like, man, I can't do this.
Right.
And the last straw, Mo, was really, they wanted me to try out for the basketball team, which is why I was there, right? I was there because I had a basketball talent.
Right.
And they said my freshman year that I had to play for the freshman team. And all I could think about was, does the freshman team play again at the Audi? And they said no. And I said, well, do the freshman team play East? Do they play Vincent? Do they play Tech? Do they play Academy? They said, no, we play a lot of out-of-town teams. And I'm like, well, that's not the team I'm on, because I have no bragging rights. I'm just going to be walking around here talking about I play basketball. And so talking about freshman basketball, I was like, no. And I said, you know what? I need to go back to East. So I was there for about 4 days. And I'll be honest, when I left, I don't know if some of the coaches said to me or some of the people, but I was told I wasn't going to make it. And that stuck with me, Mo, because that's why today I have a sour space in my heart for Prep, right? I don't really like that school. I don't believe in kids needing to go to a certain school to get recruited, to get out of the city, because I didn't need to do that. I didn't have to choose that route. So for me, I just feel like if I didn't have to do that, and if I could make it out, why can't you?
Right.
Why can't you just do the right thing and work hard and figure it out?
Right. So you talked about, you mentioned some guys that grew up in Erie that were really talented, but for whatever reason they chose a different path, didn't reach their potential. also read about the city, East St. Louis, where Brian Cox, former NFL player, read a book by his coach. He said he coached 30 other guys that had the same potential as Brian Cox, but the streets caught him up, or things like that. How did you avoid that, man? I mean, how did you avoid that? Because we both know a lot of people in Erie that have so much talent, but things just distractions, the streets. How did you avoid that?
So I was having a conversation with someone that was here, man, that you might know, and Rich Bush. Me and Richard Bush went to the Maryland-Iowa game. And while we were walking from our parking spot to that game, we had some real good conversations. Of course, the cocktails were flowing and we talking, and Rich gets really animated. Rich was a fierce competitor of mine, by the way, arch nemesis, right?
And still a legend in his own right.
I did not like Richard Bush in high school. He was a young gun firecracker. He had a short temper, short fuse, and we both were very competitive.
Right.
But we had this conversation, man, and we talked about some of the talent that came out of Erie or could have came out of Erie, right? And one of the names that came up was Roosevelt Benjamin. And I said, man, Ro was one of the most talented kids I know, right? But here's the difference, Mo, is that his friends, man, they let him down. His circle let him down.
Right.
It wasn't Ro's fault. He was a product of his environment, but his crew let him down. And what I mean by that is, Mo, in every city you go to, man, across America, the athlete always got the pass. The athlete was always told, this life ain't for you.
Right.
If you tried to sell drugs and you were a star athlete, the friends and people you call your friends, they'd be like, man, you don't do this.
Right.
Don't sell no drugs.
Right.
You need $2, here go $2.
That was my brother. My brother did that for me.
Let him down. I say that just like it sounds. They let him down. There should have been some people around him that said, Ro, this is not for you. We got this. What do you need in order to stay straight and narrow and stay focused on your journey?
Right.
Because his journey would have been great had they protected him.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Some of my friends who are not here, they weren't great guys in the community. And when I say great guys, they were guys that were selling drugs. They were into the games. They were in the street. But one thing they didn't do, they did not allow me to cross over into the street. Even when I tried to, even when I wanted to, they told me this life ain't for you. And they said, you don't want to do this.
Right.
And they spared me. And so that's what I mean when I say your circle can let you down in a lot of situations.
Right. It's funny because my brother did that for me. He was involved with some stuff. He did some time. But when I went to him at a point in my life, like, hey, I want to follow my brother's footprints. He told me, no, I better not catch you out here. You know what I mean? If you need a little money, I got you. If you need a car to drive a little on a date, whatever, I got you. You know what I mean? And speaking of Ro, man, Ro was definitely one of the greatest ever to come out of here. I was talking to a coach that coached at Glen Mills, and he said that Ro was the best athlete he's ever seen. And that's from kids from everywhere. He said Miami, California, right. Texas. He said that was the best player ever seen. So,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And I believe it, man. He was like Larry Johnson. He was like Z. What's the guy name that went to Duke? The big guy?
I can't.
The basketball player. Zion.
Okay, yeah.
He reminded me of that stature.
Yeah.
He was just a big dude,
yeah.
man. But he was athletic.
And he was athletic, fast.
He could run.
Yeah.
He was so smooth in his movements. And when I think of my own athletic ability, I'm like, man, I was nowhere near as talented as Ro was. But one thing I did was I could outwork him, though. I could outwork him, and I can outfocus, and I had an IQ that gave me an edge.
So let's talk about, so you had a great career in high school. I mean, I seen you do some great stuff. I think I even seen you running backwards from the 30-yard lines when people was chasing you one time. And I was just amazed by that. Mm-hmm. So how did you get to Maryland? How did you get recruited? How did that all work out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you know, East was not a good program. We, by any means, we were not a good program. I was not supposed to make it out of that school, out of that program. However, we had a great coach in John Dahlstrom who did everything he could, man, to get me recruited. He did everything in his power to make sure that I was going to be recruited. And so I remember us going to play a game in Greenville, Pennsylvania. I want to say that's the name of
Yeah, Greenville.
Played,
Yep, Greenville.
but we played a game in there, and we lost that game. But the coach came up to me after the end of that game, the coach for their team, and he said, "Hey, man," he said, "you're one of the most talented athletes I've seen ever come through this stadium, and I've been playing." He said, "I've been coaching here for over 13 years." And I looked at him, and I'm like, "Are you serious? Like me? Like, you think you're good, but when somebody else tells you,
Right.
it's like, really me?" And he said, "Man, when colleges come to my school, man, I'm going to send them to you." He said, "I'm going to send them your way and tell them about you." And I didn't really believe him or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever. That's just a coach being nice.
Right.
But then colleges used to come to my school, man, and they used to tell me, they used to say, "We heard about you. We heard about you from another coach." And I was like, really? And so that's how it started, Mo. It was like, I just did what I was supposed to do. I stayed straight and narrow, kept my nose clean, stayed in my lane, was productive in school and on the field. And coaches heard about me, man. And when they used to come recruit me, the first thing that they would ask me was, "What other sports am I playing?" And I meet a lot of young people who only play one sport. I never understand that.
Right.
Because you need to play multiple sports. Like, how are you training for the next sport? Like, how are you staying in shape? And so that's how I got recruited. And once those coaches started to come talk to me, Coach Dahlstrom did everything he could to to stay in touch with those coaches, having me filling out questionnaires. He inflated my height. He inflated my size. He did whatever it took to make sure I got recruited.
So for kids out there or people out there who are high school kids that are watching this, when you went to Maryland, Division I level, what was the difference between being like practicing at East High School or being an athlete at East High School going to Maryland? Was there a big jump in something different? Can you tell us what's the difference between being at the D1 level and being at the high school level?
The biggest difference was everybody was big and strong and fast, right? Everybody had athletic ability. There was not one player on the team that was a second teamer, right? Everybody was first team at some point at their high school. So getting to that level, the first thing that I noticed is that the facility. I was like, man, we got real grass. We got a turf. We got a weight room. We didn't have that at East High. I'm practicing in dirt, very little grass. So it was like, man, the facilities for one. So I'm like, man, I could run faster on here because it's actual real grass.
Right.
So I learned that I was faster than I thought I was.
Right.
The next thing, Mo, was the fact that the athletes were from everywhere. You had athletes from Texas, from New York. They had their different languages and slang that they used. So one thing that you had to learn was to survive. And I knew I could do that because I did it in Erie so well.
Right.
I knew how to navigate from the drug dealers to the gang members to the athletes to the girls. I knew how to do that. So once I got to Maryland, it was just a matter of focusing and honing in on my skills and really reminding myself on why I was there.
Right.
Why I went to Maryland and what my outcome wanted to be. And my outcome was I want to come here, and my first goal was I want to be the first in my family to graduate from college. The second thing was I said, I'm here, I'm going to play football, I'm going to have a good time. And I realized that I was more talented than a lot of freshmen that came in with me. And the coaches kept telling me that, and it stuck with me. So as long as other people believed in me, it made me believe in myself. And I just got hungry, man.
Right.
And I stayed hungry the whole time I was there.
So how long were you a starter? Did you start? How many years did you start there? Talk about your career a little bit.
So interesting enough, Mo, my first year, they recruited me as a running back. As you know, in Maryland, at Erie East, I was a running back. I get to Maryland. They tell me I'm going to be running back. Now, other schools were recruiting me like Syracuse, West Virginia, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Northwestern. All these schools, they were trying to recruit me for wide receiver. And I remember going to Syracuse. And the coach at the time was very good. They had a very, very good team. He said, man, you could be the next Marvin Harrison. And I said, well, who is Marvin Harrison? He said, oh, that's one of our top receivers. He'll be in the first round draft pick this year. And I said, receiver? I thought he played running back. I was like, I'm a running back.
Right.
Coach. And he was like, nah, you're going to be a receiver here. So as soon as he said that checked him off my list. I was like, nope, not going to Syracuse. And then when I got to my visit at Maryland, they told me I could play running back. However, when I got there in my freshman year, they recruited a bigger running back that was coming out of Rhode Island. His name was Buddy Rogers at the time. And once he signed his letter of commitment, they immediately came to me and said, hey, Buddy Rogers just signed. We're going to need you to play defensive back. And all I could do was this, Mo. I said, you gotta be kidding me. Defensive back? Like, that's not what I signed up for. So you can only imagine, Mo. So that first 2 years, man, my mindset was not there. I was disgruntled. I was bitter, angry, upset. Didn't want to be there because I didn't want to play a position that I didn't think I was getting recruited for. So my first 2 years I spent just moping around, really just being a problem more than I was a help. And then that coaching staff got fired and the new coaches came in. And the first thing they said is, if you want to start, we need you to play defensive back. But before that happened, I played wide receiver, I played running back, and then I resurfaced back again at defensive back. So I started for 2 years at the University of Maryland at defensive back.
So when did you so Erie has gotten a bad rap about like guys that go to college and quit, basically. You know what I mean? I even heard a college coach say that one time. And I can name guys that have done that. What kept you there? I mean, even me, I played small college football. There was times when I felt like, man, I want to walk away from this. But I looked at my greater picture. What kept you there?
Again, my mom, right? My family situation. The resiliency from my family, from my mom. Because at the end of the day, Mo, I did quit at one point. There was a time between my redshirt junior year that because I wasn't playing running back, because I wasn't playing a position I wanted to play, I did quit. Mm-hmm. But my quit only lasted for 2 or 3 days, right? I quit the team, came back home to Erie, had a girlfriend back at home. I was so distracted. Even started calling Edinburgh. I called Coach Allman at Edinburgh, or I think that was his name.
Yeah, Coach Allman, right.
He was at Edinburgh. He told me to come visit. He was like, you want to come back to Edinburgh? He was excited. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to Edinburgh. And I'll be honest, Mo, I went to visit Edinburgh. And when I went to visit, man, they didn't have matching cleats. Their uniforms were Nike. I was like, what am I doing here? I was like, I'm tripping right now. And so just so happened, my college coach called me. He said, hey, I don't know what happened. I don't know why you left. He said, you got 24 hours to make a decision before we give up your scholarship. And that phone call alone made me get my butt back to school, Mo, and I never looked back.
Wow. I'm glad they gave you that shot, man. I'm really glad, and I'm glad you chose to go back, man.
So for me, realizing really quickly that I was making a huge mistake. Nobody had to tell me that. I saw it myself, and I looked in the mirror and I said, man, what are you doing? You need to get back to school. And that's what I did.
So moving on to, when did you start to know, like, okay, I might want to play at the pro level? Was that one of your goals, that playing at the pro level, or?
So, if you're playing football, your goal is to make it to the highest level, right? But was it a real goal that I was writing down and talking to myself about? Not really. It didn't become a goal until my senior year in college. A coach by the name of Ron Vanderlinden, who was our football coach, he was our head coach. Nobody on the Maryland team liked Ron Vanderlinden. I'll just put that out there. None of the guys on the team liked him. He was not the very best people person or the player coach. But something happened, Mo. He really liked Cliff. Don't know why. Don't know what happened. I think it's because one day I went to him and we had a conversation. I was discouraged. I was feeling down. My little sister had just got placed in a group home. And I told him how much it hurt me, and I told him how much I was sad and I wanted to go home. And he took a liking to me, and he was like, man, you shared, you opened up with me. He asked me for my sister's address, and he wrote my sister a letter while she was locked up. And I'll never forget it. He wrote her a letter and just told her how much I cared about her. Right. And after he did that, man, it was nothing I wouldn't do for him because I felt like he cared. And so we developed a relationship. So what happened is, my senior year, he came to me and he said, man, I got scouts coming to see Eric Barton. I got scouts coming to see some of our linebackers. And then he said, I want to introduce them to you. He said, you got a lot of football left. And I said, for real? I said, but they're the All-American.
Right.
And he told me, he said, nah, you got a lot of football in you left. And every time a scout came, he called me to his office to introduce me to the scout. And that's really how it started to become a reality for me, is that, do I have a lot of football left? Am I that good? And so I started to believe it, and it started to show up.
So how did you get to, let's talk about So he started introducing you to these agents or these scouts. Did you get drafted? Were you a free agent when you went to the pros? How did that work?
No, I actually didn't get drafted, but I thought I was going to get drafted. There was teams like the Raiders and the Patriots. Those were the two teams that seemed like they were the most interested in me. They wanted to know more information about me. Did I run track? When did I run track? They were so interested in me because of my speed. When I ran at our pro day, I ran a 4.340. And so, as you know, that's fast. That's moving. That's pretty good.
Right.
So we ran the 40, and they really liked what they saw. They liked my film, and I thought I was going to get drafted. However, on draft day, I got a phone call from two teams, the St. Louis Rams and the New England Patriots. So either way, Mo, I was going to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
It was going to happen.
It was happening.
And so two teams, the Rams called me first, and they said, hey, we got one more pick in the 6th round. We're thinking about picking you. However, would you consider signing as a free agent? I should have said no, but I said, sure. I ain't with no team.
Right.
I'm going to sign with anybody. But they said, okay, that's good to know. Then they called me back before they were picking. They had 2 picks before they picked. And they said, we're really thinking about you again, but there's a kicker at Georgia Tech that we really want as a free agent, but we don't think he's going to sign as a free agent because he would rather sign with the Atlanta Falcons because he's from Atlanta, He's from Georgia. He's not going to come to St. Louis. Are you going to be okay with that? And I'm like, what am I supposed to say to like, okay? And so they drafted him, and then they called me right after the draft, and they said, would you like signing with the St. Louis Rams? And at that time, it was my only call. So I got off the phone with them. I agreed in principle, and then I got a phone call from the New England Patriots, and they said, we want to sign you. Did anybody else call you? And the funny thing is, I was like, well, I just got off the phone with the St. Louis Rams, and they talking about signing me. And so we were talking about a signing bonus, and they were trying to get me less than the St. Louis Rams. Right. So I was like, nah, I'm going to go with the St. Louis Rams.
Right.
And it might have been a couple $1,000s less, but I was like, any money right now is going to do.
Right, more money, right.
I stayed with the St. Louis Rams, and that's what happened. So hopefully that light didn't mess everything up. So I'm going to stay like this. And so that's what happened, Mo. I got drafted. I got a free agent deal with the St. Louis Rams, and the rest is history. As you know, it's tough. You got to make the team. It's no different than being a walk-on in college, but it's called free agent in the NFL. So I had to make the team. I had to work hard every single day, Mo. It was not easy, bro.
So you went on. Now you going from Division I. You went from East High School to Division I Maryland. Then you in an NFL camp. Tell me what the difference is between being in an NFL camp as opposed to Division I on a Division I football team. As a free agent too.
It was like a whole different level. I felt like that was the biggest jump. It wasn't the jump from high school to college to me. It was the jump from college to the NFL, because now guys really got skills. They've perfected those skills. And so for me, Mo, it was interesting because I really didn't have a whole lot of experience playing defensive back. So I was a little nervous, and I felt like, man, some of these guys been playing 4-year starter at defensive back. So I'm like, how am I going to compete? And I got there, man, and I ran into Orlando Pace. I played against him in the Big 33. He took me under his wing. He was very kind to me, like a big brother. Then I saw London Fletcher. London Fletcher, who was a free agent at the time, he was a big time special teams guy. He kind of got in my ear and was like, man, you can make the team as a free agent playing special teams. He said, so when it's special teams time, he said, you need to go out there like it's your starter seat, like it's the offense, it's the first offense. And I just remember him telling me how important special teams was. And so for me, I never forgot it. So I took special teams just as serious as I took the defensive back drills. And that's what gave me the opportunity to stay there.
So that's funny how that changes, because like in high school, as a starter, sometimes we don't want to play special teams, but then at the pros, like you said, hey, that could be your way in the door a lot of times. So
right.
You and I played against each other in high school, but I've always admired your athletic ability. Some of the things I would see you do just amaze me, and I always want to ask you because I know what type of athlete you were,
right?
And I just thought, like, man, if Cliff is that great of an athlete, How did anybody ever start over him? Because it's just amazing to me that anybody could be. I mean, are there better athletes, or what's the difference, man? I mean, what is it?
So some of the difference is your draft status, just flat out. Most first round, second round, third round picks are going to get more opportunities than a free agent, right? Because if you think about it, and this is where people say, "Oh, it's politics," right? It's business. It's business 101.
Right.
If I'm going to invest in a first round pick, millions of dollars, why would I not get the return on my investment? Right? So if I'm drafting you in the first round or second round, I got to play you because, one, I don't want to look stupid for making a bad draft pick.
Right.
Number two, I just gave you all this money. So I'm going to get my money's worth first. And then this free agent, I actually want him to be on the team, but I really don't want him to shine too much more than my draft pick. Again, because it makes me look bad. And so a lot of times, Mo, you're dealing with that as an athlete, is that you're not getting the opportunities as these other guys. You're not getting coached the same way. Some people might laugh and say that that's not true, but come on, we all know that when you get to a certain level, there's favorites.
Right.
There's things the first round pick can do that the seventh round pick can't do. So it just is what it is. I would make plays in practice, and I wouldn't get the same praise that the first round pick would get if he made the same play. So it was what it was. And once I quickly realized that that's how it was, I had to find ways to stand out in practice every day.
Right.
Whether it was making an interception, whether it was making a pass breakup, whether it was getting in a little scuffle with somebody just to show how tough I am.
Right.
I had to do something to stand out each practice.
So you were on the Super Bowl team in 2000 with the Rams. What was that experience like? Can you share any interesting stories, NFL stories, or what was it like to be on the Super Bowl team?
For one, it was a great experience, Mo. And I'm gonna turn some lights on real quick, just because it's getting a little darker out.
Okay.
I'll stand right here so you can see me.
Okay.
But just to start off, Mo, I mean, it was a great team. Trying to get the lighting right, Mo. Hold on. It's really bad right here. All right, here we go. It was a great team, Mo, because one, we came together that year. I don't know if you know it, but before I got on that team, the Rams had an all-players meeting, and man, they were ready to get rid of Dick Vermeil, Coach Vermeil. The players were not happy. They said, man, he's killing us. He's running us in the ground. We're practicing too long. We're hitting in practice. And they had a meeting with players only, and then they called Coach Vermeil in there and told him we need to change how we practice. And I wasn't there yet. I was still in college.
Right.
But when I got there, Coach Vermeil listened to his players, and he changed his whole practice. He said, we're going to still practice. We just going to practice faster. So we're going to get the same amount of work in. We're just going to move faster.
Right.
And so what happened, Mo, is when I got there, the team came together. They created a bond before I even got there. And that bond, I just got acclimated to the culture. And so once I got acclimated, I just got in line and did what everybody else was doing. And you had guys like Kurt Warner, Marshall Falk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. You just saw guys come together and realize that we had something special. And once I realized that, man, it was like a blessing to be on that team, because as we started to win more and more games, I'm like, wow, we really good.
Right.
Man, we the best team in the NFL. I'm on the best team in the NFL. And so it was a surreal moment, man, to see it all play out in real life.
So during your career, man, you played with some great names: Kurt Warner, Marshall Falk, Isaac Bruce. You said Torrey Holt, London Fletcher. I believe you played with Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Edgerrin James. I mean,
Reggie Wayne. I mean, I played with some great guys. Had to cover them guys every day in practice. Crazy conditioning, and I had to be on my A game every practice. That's the difference between the NFL and college and high school. In the NFL, man, you don't get no days off. If you're a free agent, you don't get a sick day. You don't get an opportunity to say, Coach, I got a little headache today. I can't practice. Man, you better practice that day, because a missed opportunity is not a good thing. You need to be out there. You need to be playing. I remember going to the Indianapolis Colts, and we had a guy on our team named E.G. Green. E.G. Green played at Florida State. He was a good wide receiver.
Right.
He was supposed to be Marvin Harrison's counterpart. He was supposed to be number 2. But one thing about E.G. Green was he was always hurt. He was always hurt. Every practice, he had on a jersey and a hat. And I remember Coach Moore going up to him and saying, "When are you going to practice?" He said, "You always wearing a baseball cap." He's like, "What's up with that?" And Coach Moore, if you know who Coach Moore is, Mo, he's one of those guys that, man, he had no cut card.
Right.
He said whatever
he wanted. Right.
And so the interesting thing about that, Mo, is it scared the living daylight out of me. I was like, man, I can't be hurt. I'm never gonna be in a baseball cap. I was like, I'm not being in that baseball cap. If he gonna talk to me like that, I'm gonna play through injuries and do whatever I gotta do.
Right. So I noticed too that you still keep in contact with a lot of the pro players. You're still involved with a lot of stuff. Is that like a brotherhood type of thing that the NFL players have?
Yeah. Well, I work for the NFLPA, so I'm a contractor with the NFLPA. It's called the Trust, and what we do is we help former players transition from when they retired to transitioning back to being a non-athlete. So I'm working with those guys, not just in their presence. Like I'm on the phone with guys, calling guys, telling them, asking them, and helping them transition, man. Because you'll be surprised, Mo. Some of these guys have been playing football since they were in Pee-wee.
Right.
So when football is over, they're a little lost. They're a little confused on what's next.
Right.
It doesn't matter what's in their bank account. It's like, what am I doing next?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm 6'5", I weigh 350 pounds. What kind of job am I going to have? Like, I can't just be a regular person because people are going to always look at me like, you used to play football? Why you work here?
Right.
So I had to prepare them for their next journey in life. And so that's what I currently do, man. I do outreach and player engagement for our former players and helping them connect to the resources and benefits that they may need once they transition.
Okay, that's great. Before I got a few more questions for you, but I wanted to ask you too, for anybody that's in high school or college right now, give them some Cliff Crosby advice as student athletes out there. What advice do you have for them?
I would just say my biggest advice would be is asking for help. I think young people don't understand how to ask for help. They don't know how to go to the adults in their life and ask the important question. They're turning to social media. They're turning to their friends. They're turning to things that don't really care about them. And when I say don't care about them, as adults in your circle, whether it's your teacher, assistant principal, the guidance counselor, or some people in your family, those are the people that really want you to succeed no matter what. They may not always say the right thing to you. They may not say what you want to hear, but those are the people that want you to succeed. And as young people, they tend to avoid those people.
Right.
Because they know they're going to be held accountable. And so one thing I can say is stay in your lane. That's one thing I did very well. I knew I wasn't a street dude. I knew I wasn't a gangster. I knew I wasn't a fighter. I knew I wasn't a drug dealer. And I stayed away from it because it wasn't me. And I knew I couldn't do it well. I stayed true to the things that I could do well. And I wasn't curious about exploring into those other things. So that's one of the biggest things is stay young, be a kid, and stay in your lane and recognize what your lane is.
Right. That's so big in a lot of things, man. Recognize your lane, your role, you know. So I noticed that you are very active still, even though, you know, you had this NFL career and stuff like that, and you still actively involved with that. You still have time for Erie. You still have time for the community you grew up in. Why is that important for you to still be a part of the Erie community?
I don't know. You know, it's still special to me because all of my family is still there, right? And so I recognize that I have a talent. I have the ability to inspire and motivate people, and also I recognize that people in Erie look to me as a role model in a lot of situations. it's the guys that are older than me. People still look to me as a role model. And so I take that role very seriously. So when it comes to giving back, when it comes to showing love back at home, it's just a natural thing to do, right? It's just what I'm supposed to do. And so I felt like for the it's some of the things I needed to do to get back. That's it. But it's a lot of work trying to do that and be remote from Erie.
Right.
So it was very difficult to keep up. And so as I got older, I just recognized that, you know what, I got to stay in my lane. I always recognize my lane. I'm gonna pass the torch to some younger guys, Javon Johnson, Javon Crosby, and those guys. I want those guys who are in Erie, at home. Let those guys go ahead and do those things. Man, I did that. I don't need to be in that light no more. I don't need to be seen like that anymore. But wherever I can lend a hand, I'm willing to do.
Right. So Erie has kind of changed a little bit, man. A lot of the violence, some violence happening here that wasn't happening when you and I were coming up in high school. I mean, kids always fought. They fought in the 50s. They fought in the 30s. It's been movies made about it. So we're not going to act like teenagers never fought. But now we see a lot of gun violence and things like that in Erie. What do you think is going on in the Erie, and what do you think it needs?
I just think gun violence is a problem everywhere, right? Because access. If you would have told me when I was in high school to go get a gun, I wouldn't have known where to start. Wait, where do you go get a gun? Better yet, who do you ask for that you need a gun?
Right.
Like, why would I even go up to somebody and say, hey, I need a gun. Can you help me? That sounds crazy to me. So now it's just access, Mo. It's like they have so much access.
Right.
They got access to videos, to YouTube, and so they seeing more. Their eyes are not as pure, and their heart is not as pure as it was when you and I was growing up, Mo. So we didn't know about that stuff.
Right.
And so we were never really curious about.
Right.
So now you got those young people growing up listening to the music they're listening to, the drugs that they're on, the weed they smoke, whatever it is, Mo, it's all the variables that go into that. It's not just the guns, because most people I know that play and dabble in guns also do drugs, right? I ain't saying it has to be a hard drug, but they probably smoking weed and they ain't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably drinking at an underage. So it's all risky behavior. That's what I call it. It's not necessarily what it is. It's just the behaviors, Mo. They're just taking more risks than we did. We didn't take those risks.
Right. So to wrap up here, just want to finish with like to say thank you, Cliff, for your time today, man, and being flexible with this interview today. We got through it, and it was a great interview. A lot of great insight from you. Any lasting thoughts, comments that you could share to take away as we end?
Absolutely. One I would go back to and say, because I know some people in Erie will watch this video, and some may agree and some may disagree. I'm just a person, right? I'm sharing my opinion. I'm sharing my journey. I'm sharing my experiences and how I view Erie. I mentioned the name earlier of Roosevelt Benjamin, who is a good friend of mine. I have nothing against that guy. He's
Much respect.
Great
Much respect for Ro. Much respect.
I also want to say, I mentioned the fact that his friends let him down. I stand by that. It's no disrespect to anybody, but if you got hindsight and you can go back and take ownership for how your circle let you down, man, it's a tragedy. And not only was that for him, it continues to happen today. It continues to happen to our young athletes, our young talent in Erie, whether they athletes or not. It's just the circle of friends that you hang out with. You got to know your circle. And once you know your circle, if the circle is not uplifting you and pushing you to be great and better, then it's not the right circle for you. So my last advice to the adults and the people that I grew up with is just continue to build relationships with your kids, continue to show them the right way, continue to just show them how to take care of themselves, show them how to be the father that you weren't, the mother you weren't. Try to show them just how to do that. And we need our fathers, man. We need our fathers to step up. It's never too late to be a father to your kids. I don't care what money you have or whatever. Time is important. Your kids just want your time. They don't care how much money you got. When I was a young person, I didn't care how much money. I didn't even know how much money my mom had. I didn't know how much money my grandma had. I just wanted time. I just wanted them to spend time with me, to know that I was loved, to know that I was cared for. And I think a lot of our fathers today, man, they feel like if they don't have no finances to offer, they can't be a good father. And that's so far from the truth. Just spending time with your kids help them see things in you that they didn't know that they had. And so that's my lasting words, man. I'm from the 814. I'm from Erie. I bleed Erie in my heart, man. And I love that city with everything I got, man. And every time I go home, I get an overwhelming feeling from the vibes that I get from my city, because it reminds me where I come from. It reminds me of the struggle. It reminds me of the resilience that I come from. And so that's what my lasting words.
All right, y'all, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks again, Cliff. We appreciate your time, man. Once again, that was Cliff Crosby, Words with Cliff Crosby, former NFL player and Super Bowl champ from the 2000 St. Louis Rams. Thanks, Cliff. Enjoy your weekend.
I appreciate you, Mo. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Let's stay talking, man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you. And good luck, man, on running for city council, man. I really hope that works out for you, Mo. I'm proud of you, man. You working with our young people, Mo. I just want to, shout you out, man, and say how proud I am of you, man, and how you carry yourself on social media. Again, all of that stuff matters, right? Because you couldn't run for city council, right, if you had a terrible social media presence.
Right.
You would have to scramble and try to clean that up.
Right.
You didn't have to do that.
Right.
Because you already stayed in your lane, Mo.
Right.
I love seeing your questions on social media. I ain't going to lie, when they first started, I was like, why is Mo asking all these questions? And then I got to know you and got to know why you were doing it. And it created dialogue. And I think that's what you're all about. You're all about dialogue so different people can share their thoughts. It's not about whether we agree or not. It's about, let's see what other people have to say about it.
Right.
And so I appreciate you for doing that, Mo.
Appreciate you too, man. And just to end up, man, like you mentioned, Ro. Like if I do get on city council, I feel like Ro has a big role in this community still. You know what I mean? And he's somebody that I will be listening to. Like I said, I'll be listening to you. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. Your thoughts are important to me, man. So enjoy your weekend. Thanks again, man. Bro. Yep.
All right. Yep. You have a good one, Mo.
You too.